Yay. Oh yeah, and it has the little like loading bar. It's so fun.
Does anybody who hasn't given us their like Cash Apps or Venmos or whatever want us to put them in?
That's okay. You don't have to put mine.
Okay. Cool.
Live on YouTube.
Okay, hold on, I'm trying to figure this out. Sorry.
Want us to put them in?
Okay.
All right. When do we want to start? Are we?
Give me a second. I'm
All right.
to change. I have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
embed it on the website really quick.
Okay, got it.
Save. Save. Publish. Disable. Okay. I think we are live.
Yeah, the delay is weird because I'm watching myself do something I did like a minute ago. I don't know.
Oh yeah, the delay is really weird. Okay, I'm just gonna close it off because if I stare at myself too much, that will.
You're live.
Yeah, we are live.
Yeah, the delay is weird because I'm watching my.
Y'all can just turn off the YouTube.
Oh, I can hear it. Yeah.
That's a good idea. Should I start? Okay, cool. Hey guys, thank you so much for coming to our first online panel.
We're NC PAYV, Piedmont Amplifying Youth Voices, and today we're going to be talking to Chaos, Alli B, Kelcy Dial, and Luxe Posh.
The focus of our panel today is how the experience of trans people, gender nonconforming people, people in the LGBTQ community, and women can be different than cisgender heterosexual men in the music industry.
Gender bias in the music industry is not always something that's talked about, as it's easy to overlook it as personal taste or what's available to you. Collaboration in music is also really important for artists when they start out. Women lack a lot of those opportunities, which makes it harder for them to get noticed and come into their own as artists. Here's a couple of quotes from research articles. In an analysis of the top 600 songs from the year 2012 to 2017, defined by Billboard's year-end Hot 100 chart for each of those 6 years, the study found that of 1,239 performing artists, 22.4% of them were women. Across the 3 creative roles highlighted in a study, women make up 21.7% of artists, 12.3% of songwriters, and 2.1% of producers.
But also, being a transgender person, non-binary person, and/or women in the music industry can also rock, and we'll be spending time talking about the joy that comes with that.
I would like you to welcome our first panelist, Alli B. She uses she, her pronouns. Alli is a recording and mixing engineer born and raised in North Carolina. She's written music all her life, and when she was 14, she decided to figure out how to record them. After setting up a single microphone in a shed in her backyard, she decided she wanted to record music for a living. She now holds a degree in music technology and has the honor of mentoring with several producers in the area. Halloween on Raspberry Hill is Alli's current home studio, where she records, mixes, and masters music.
Thanks, Jonah. Hi, everyone.
Hi. Our second panelist is Chaos, who uses they, she pronouns. Chaos is a queer trans multidisciplinary artist based in Durham, North Carolina. They started their artist career in 2011, dancing professionally after high school. Through dancing and being in Durham's queer community, they found their way to music through being a backup dancer. Her music is all types of genres and brings energy of resistance and liberation. They have released 2 projects so far, her EP Transformation and a mixtape called the Violent Femme Mixtape. You can support Chaos at Cruel World of KHXOS on Venmo and Cruel World of KHXOS on Cash App.
The next panelist I would like to introduce is Kelcy Dial, who uses she, her pronouns. She is a live sound engineer. Kelcy has been an avid fan of music all her life and has been playing around with instruments since she was a kid. She started working with live audio in 2015. She finds the work to be creative and exhilarating and feels like using the PA system is a lot like playing an instrument. Kelcy is so happy to have this experience and loves to learn and share it with people.
Our last panelist is Luxe Posh, who uses she, her pronouns. She first started to DJ when she was 23 because of her lifelong passion for music, and now has made it a career. Before COVID, she was regularly hosting club nights and booking shows at Ruby Deluxe. Her sets span across a variety of genres, including rap, house, techno, pop, disco, rock, Latin, dancehall, R&B, and electro. Luxe Posh is known for being able to get people onto the dance floor at any event. You can support Luxe Posh at Luxe Posh on Venmo, money sign Brenecia on Cash App, BRENIECIA on Cash App, or Brenecia at iCloud.com on PayPal. Again, Brenecia, BRENIECIA at iCloud.com.
Okay, so we're going to start with our questions. So our first question is, well, we'd like to go around and get to know a little bit more about each of you and your professions. Could you tell us like what you do both in the music industry, but also outside of it?
I guess I'll go first. Like they said in the bio before COVID, I was DJing like regular club nights, and not only just club nights, I do like corporate events and then private events. I do like weddings and baby showers and family events and things like that. But since COVID happened, my career has kind of changed. I do a lot of online events now, and then like socially distanced events if they're like for a good cause, not just to like be out in the streets just having a good time, but like, you know. But so now I do that, and then since COVID happened, I'm back in school, so yeah.
I have kind of dabbled in a little bit of every element of sound and recording. I did live sound before COVID, but my passion has kind of always been in the recording studio. So tracking and also mixing and mastering. And actually, before I got more experienced in tracking and mixing, I interned with a mastering engineer. So I kind of came in from things sort of backwards by starting at the end of the process and then figuring out, oh, what happens before that? What really goes into the process of, making music. But as Jonah introduced, I kind of got into all this just from songwriting and playing music.
Hi. I'm a musician slash dancer and choreographer based in the Triangle area. I started about 2 or 3 years ago, actually, from backup dancing. Actually, I was backup dancing for an artist by the name of Zen So Fly, and do backup dancing for her. I met her producer, who ended up just like one day being like, hey, you know, you want to get together and just start, you know, see what you do in the studio. And from there, I just started writing. And currently, I'm signed to Never Normal Records. I just signed. So I've been working on a new project that I can't wait to release soon. And yeah, my main thing is just working with queer and trans producers and different artists, and just kind of collaborating. I like collaborating a lot, just to kind of, I don't know, build more art. And you know, I feel like we need to see more of ourselves in the music industry. And so now, especially with COVID, everybody is like in a place to where they can just bunker down and kind of like take the time to do these things. So yeah, that's my J.
Oh, hi, I'm Kelcy. And before COVID, I was doing live sound primarily. I worked out of a lot of venues and for a lot of production companies. And I started doing that in 2015. I had been playing music in some kind of way since I was a kid. I started playing like piano and guitar, and then I was played drums and all kinds of stuff. And I always knew that I wanted to work in it, but I wasn't really sure like what the path was to do that. So I interned in some studios and I got a job wiring studios, which was really cool because that helped me learn the signal flow really well and kind of be in it and around it a lot. Um, but I started doing sound in a really small club just to get some experience with the equipment because I didn't really know what any of it really did. and and then I just fell in love with doing live sound. It was just really exciting and fast and loud, and I was very into it. So it was kind of like a crash course for a couple of years, but I finally got to where it was like a real career that I had going on. And then COVID happened. So now I can do some live streams sometimes. That's been fun. And I'm really just hoping that we can have shows again sometime so that all the people on this panel can get on stage again and we can all be very loud because I've seen all of you on stage before. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing. We'd like to hear a little bit about how you first got started with this industry. So some of these questions you may have answered in the previous question, but what or who inspired you to start pursuing music? And we can just go in the same order that you guys answered before.
Okay. Well, my story is interesting because when I was younger, we used to have to burn CDs and download them off the internet and like go to record stores and stuff. So when we would like have parties and stuff when we were younger, I was always the one that was in charge of the computer. Like I would run to the computer, I would make the playlist for the party. I had the Winamp. I was like in charge of just running back and forth to the computer and pressing next and like stop it and choosing songs. And so I lived in Raleigh, and we used to have house shows at my house when I was younger. And then when I was older, we moved to Carborough. And so I started becoming friends with a lot of the girls who DJ'd at XYC in Chapel Hill. And so Heather Wilson and Steph Russ were like my really good friends. And I was dating this guy and I was really into him, and he broke up with me, and I was really sad, like sad to the point where I would cry all the time. I'd cry all the time, just like nonstop. And one day Heather knocked on my door at my house and she was like, "You have to stop crying. I'm gonna teach you how to DJ." So I was like, okay. So she taught me how to DJ, and it was like she taught me how to DJ on actual turntables. And you don't have to DJ on actual turntables, but like that was the way that I started. Like I started collecting more records and like playing out in clubs. Like we started playing at like Nightlight, and then like Ethan and Charlie, who own Nightlight and All Day in Chapel Hill, we would DJ at parties in their yards. We started DJing at the station, and then I started getting like more and more gigs. So eventually when I moved back to Raleigh, I started DJing at Neptune's and stuff. But basically, it was essentially because I got my feelings hurt by a guy, and one of my good girlfriends was just like, "You need a better hobby than like crying over a dude." So like since then, like that has always been my thing. It's a really emotional thing for me when I DJ, but I think that is kind of what boils down to it, just because it's such a labor of love for me. But yeah, that's my story of how I essentially started. But yeah.
I think it all just kind of began for me with discovering albums that you don't necessarily hear on the radio. You know, I had an older brother and he was kind of my guide into like indie music, you know, and hearing that sort of sound, it was like unlike anything I'd ever really heard, and it somehow sounded more relatable, like something that maybe I could actually sound like, or, you know, maybe like somehow get a sound like that. So like bands like Rilo Kiley, just kind of, you know, bands that sounded like me, you know, like kind of what I was feeling and playing at home and stuff like that. So Jenny Lewis was a really big inspiration to me. Got into like Bright Eyes, you know, just kind of these sorts of bands. And that's when I realized, okay, maybe I can sort of, they were recording these things in their basements, you know, on whatever equipment they could get a hold of. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I can get a hold of something and try it. And I wasn't even sure that you could do that as a career. I didn't know that you can just be an audio engineer and that's what you can be. But when I tried it and sort of taught myself what to do, it felt like, man, if I could do this forever, like this is what I want to do, you know? And so from there is when I realized there are tons of people out there that I can, you know, just kind of follow their lead, like Susan Rogers, who was Prince's personal engineer, Sylvia Massey, who's just this woman who's really into like crazy microphones and crazy recording techniques. I started discovering more and more people to use as sort of my pillars and where I can go with this. And then meeting people in person eventually, you know, it's been a slow build, but eventually working with Mitch Easter and Missy Thangs at Fidelatorium was a huge introduction to me into what this can really be. You know, you can run a studio and manage a studio and record people, and yeah.
So I got into music. Well, actually, like from a young age, I was really exposed to music. Music was something I was always around. I'm originally from upstate New York, and you know, like my dad is a musician. He plays the piano. Like my uncle plays like the saxophone and guitar, and then on my mom's side of the family, like I was around like my brothers and sisters and just like grew up listening to a lot of just like New York rap, listening to like Rough Riders, Wu-Tang Clan, things like that. But I was like the alternative kid. I was like the very alt kid in my family, black sheep. So I was listening to like The Prodigy and sort of like, you know, like Marilyn Manson was coming out and things like that. So I kind of always had a really eclectic taste in music. But I think like through dancing, which came later when I moved to North Carolina around like middle school, I think it was around middle school, the end of middle school, I got into dance and started with modern dance and contemporary. So through these arts, I started getting into more alternative artists and things like that. I was listening to like Bjork and listening to people like Rosen Murphy and Imogen Heap. Like so a lot of these like cool people like on the side it's time to go. So by the time I got out of high school, like, you know, dancing was something that really drove me. And through music, like I was always able to like create some really like bomb stuff. And that eventually led me to backup dancing for artists. Because I was just like, like I love music. I love to listen to a lot of stuff. So let me just like while I'm dancing, be able to like support these artists that I think are cool. Which led me to like I'm dancing from with Zenzo Fly. I was also a part of a drag house in Durham, the House of Cox. So I think my first encounter was like at a drag show, and then I ended up meeting Zen at this drag event, and through there, we kind of built this connection. And yeah, she really like motivated me to like get into it once I got up with the producer. I was also around a lot of dope black films like Bryn here, Luxe Posh, Gemini. A lot of the homies in the Triangle area who were very like supportive of like just me as a black trans film, as a black film in the community, and just being like like you can do this. We love your stuff. We think you're dope. And I don't think I would have gotten to the place where I am now if it wasn't for like so much of the queer community and like in the area. So yeah, now I'm doing my thing. Like signed to a really dope label, indie label that's very centered around just like just queers and women and non-men, and just building and POCs, just like building our own, just our own shit. I mean, our own stuff. Excuse my French. It's just we need that right now, more than ever. Um, it's kind of tiring to have to always see like white cis men in these spaces and like commanding, you know, just commanding everything and wanting us to produce so much stuff that which then gets ripped off by someone else. And we're seeing it, and you're just like, okay, like we're doing all this work, like it's the punks, it's the queers, it's the women of color, it's like all these people who are really like taking music and like innovating it and like putting up here just for it to get ripped off. So now I'm in a place to where I'm just like, you know what, like screw all these dudes. I got like my squad now, and like the community, like we're just gonna take over the game. Like, yeah.
Hello? Hi. Everybody on here is so cool. And I relate to everyone a lot. And it feels like such a broad question, like how do you get into this? And I mean, when I say I relate to everybody, I mean that it just goes back really far. I mean, this whole like doing live sound thing feels less like an event and more just like a natural continuation of just things I've always been into. I remember being a little kid and just being really excited about music and just having access to a weird array of things. Like I had a bunch of Michael Jackson cassette tapes that I was like obsessed with and cherished. I had all of the music videos, and it was just my world. And then there was also like Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. I don't know why I had that. And just whatever people left laying around. I had like a little cassette Walkman and some weird blend of tapes. But when I was like 10, 11 years old, somebody in my family gave me like this huge stack of burnt CDs, which was a real labor of love. Cause at that time, I think it took like an hour to burn a CD, but it was like just all kinds of like old music, like 60s and 70s, like classic albums. And they just dumped them on me. And because I think it was like, if you're going to listen to music this much, maybe try to get you into something that, cool. I don't know what their inspiration for doing that was, but I got an electric guitar shortly after that. And that was just it. Like that was my whole life. That was all I cared about. That was the only thing in the world to me. And so then I had a little band in high school. We were kind of a silly little band, but we wanted to record ourselves, and we had this real mishmash of equipment. We didn't have any money really. And so we had like this old mixer thing and like this really old Dell laptop. and Audacity, which was like this free program, and we had like 158. And I decided that we would try to record ourselves. And so there was several years of just like trying and to make recordings on this thing. And that I really wanted to do kind of like what Alli does, like work in recording studios and do like tracking and mixing and all of that kind of stuff. And I said this earlier, but I had all these other kind of things where I could get close to it, like interning, which really for me, my internships was mostly making coffee. But then I had the wiring work, and then it was all just a big mess. But I thought that if I could just do live sound in a small club for a little bit, that maybe I could actually get a grip on some of this stuff. And that was it. I walked into Neptune's one night to see a friend's band, and there wasn't really anybody at the show. It was me and the bartenders, and there was somebody in the corner with a little mixer, and I asked them, how did you get into doing this? And they were like, I do booking and nobody else will do this down here in the basement. And so I just do it, and I don't want to do it. And I was like, I want to do it. And they were like, okay, cool. Here's where we keep the microphones. Just show up. And so I just started looking at their calendar online and going to like every show. And I felt creepy. Like I felt like I was like just following this person around for like months until they started paying me like half of what they got paid. And then they finally just quit showing up, and they were like, you just do it. And then some of the people that worked at King's upstairs would be like, could you cover this? And I would be terrified. But then, I mean, I would say, yes, I'll cover it. And then I would take a stab at it, and it would be kind of like a huge mess a lot of the time. But then I got the hang of it, and then more and more venues got chances to try. And that just feels like a long-winded, messy answer. But yeah, that's how I got into it.
Yeah, I love that story. So when did you guys first start thinking that you could make a career out of music and audio? Like, do you feel like you've made a career out of it?
It's kind of crazy because I've been doing this for 13 years now. And I honestly didn't really feel like I could start making money and living off of it until last year. And I've been doing it for such a long time. And like, I remember when I moved back to Raleigh from Carborough, and I started DJing at Neptune's, and I was like taking all my crates of records and lugging them downstairs. This is like before I started doing like Serato, where I just like bring my computer. So I was like lugging crates and crates downstairs to Neptune's, and then crates all over the place, and then borrowing equipment, and then like borrowing PAs, and like, you know, people were looking out for me, and I'm still like so appreciative of that. And like, you never really feel like it's crazy, because I've done like crazy big gigs. Like I've opened for Green Velvet like last year at the Fruit in Durham, and I've DJ'd at World Pride on a float in New York. And like, I still like have had all these moments, but I still don't feel like I'm like a big time DJ, because I'm not like, I'm not like living large or anything. But I honestly didn't feel like I had started making like a living off of it, and like, you know, actually being able to like eat and like be comfortable until last year. And then COVID happened. So like, you never, for me personally, I don't think it'll take a lot for me to feel like, oh yes, I am a DJ. Like even now when people are just like, you're a DJ, I still kind of cringe. And like when people ask me what I do, I like, it's not usually the first thing that I say, like I'm a DJ, because I always feel like people sound like cheese balls when they say that. But like, you know, for me, I just think it has a lot to do with, you know, imposter syndrome that a lot of people, and especially a lot of like women in films, like tend to have in like this industry. Like it's something that I struggle with a lot still, but you know, it's a work in progress. Hopefully when things go back, if things go back to normal, like it obviously won't pick off where it left off, but I'm in the industry where like if things ever go back to normal again and we can all go out again, people will want to celebrate a lot. So I know that I won't be lacking in scheduling in that area. But yeah, I think it's a lot. That's a big personal thing when it comes to like what, you know, level of success. I think it's like, you know, it's relative to who you are, I guess.
Yeah. I love what you said about imposter syndrome. I've had that up until recently. I didn't say I'm an audio engineer. Or if I did say it, in the back of my head, I was thinking, but, not really, or just second guessing myself. But I've always had, it's been kind of a labor of love for me for a long time, where I'm spending my days at a day job, and maybe my nights were at Neptune's or Ruby or somewhere running sound. And if I wasn't doing either of those things, where I could count on a paycheck, then I was recording bands, particularly bands that maybe it's their first recording ever, just really DIY style. What do we have? Let's make it work with what we have. And that's really what I've been doing up until recently, where I guess it all kind of, time and effort and attention and intention really does pay off, because I feel like I'm at a place now where I do feel comfortable calling it a career. And that only happened after, over 10 years of fiddling around with this stuff, So yeah, I do. I think it's a career, and I think it's going to be pretty innovative and exciting. COVID sort of, it frightened me at first. I thought, okay, I got to go back to, a desk job of some kind. But it turns out everybody's really inspired and fueled by this moment in time. And actually, people need their voices to be heard and be recorded now more than ever. And so things have actually been taking off in the recording industry, surprisingly. Everybody's writing music, everybody's at home, and they have so many things on their minds. And I felt really fortunate to be able to help people record those thoughts and start getting those ideas out there. Yeah.
The part that you were just saying about everyone's like inside and have like a song like right now, so everyone's like writing that's kind of how it got me to the point to where I was like, I can do it, because at the time, a couple of years back, I was kind of in the place to where I was like struggling with a lot of stuff. And I think this is also around times where like there were like the riots started happening. And it was just kind of like a very fueled kind of moment to be kind of around creatives, I felt like. So I just kind of, I had just kind of like writing poetry. And once I started getting into the booth and started rapping, and at the time too, I was like still like a big Azealia Banks fan. So I was just like, you know what? I'm about to get out here. I got this studio right here. I'm about to get up here and pop my stuff. I'm lit. And then like within like within like a 4-hour span, because like each week that I went to record, like went into the studio, I knocked out a song, and it was like hour and a half sessions we would have. And like by like the 4th week, I had an EP, and I was just like, yo, like, like this is an actual like a body of work. It's not the most polished thing, but the fact that I had the tools to create kind of was like the first point. And then when I released my mixtape way later, and working with a cool engineer, Una, who is awesome in community around here. Una definitely was just like, let's come to my studio, like, and like we're gonna do this. And so Una really like helped like motivate me, because if you've ever met Una is a very focused person. Like when they come in, they know what they're about to do. Like they're very sweet, but they're like, I'm here I know where I need to be and all that. So it made me want to be like, okay, I'm gonna come in too with the same attitude. Like I'm coming in with more intention. I'm coming here to do it, you know. And once I got the Violent Fin mixtape out, and I did my first music video, first music video for the mixtape. That's when I was like, you know what? I'm an artist. Like I'm a whole musician. I can do this, you know. And especially when you see like your community like supporting you too, that's a big thing for me. Like I'm always thinking about like what like my community would be bumping to. Like what would I want to hear if I'm with like my squad, you know, when I'm with Queer Fam, when, you know, before like especially like before COVID, it's like what do I want to hear? So I'm always doing my music with intentions of reaching my community and making my community feel something. Because as a person who, um, you know, as a trans person too, I spent like especially after coming out, I spent a lot of time not present and always like dissociating. I was never really present in my body. And I feel like within the past year or two, I've actually really come to a place to where I'm like able to feel again. I'm more present. I'm just like I can have these like healthier relationships with people. And I want my music to have that effect. So I think that's now where I'm trying to gauge my if I'm doing it or not, you know, because also like under capitalism, we tend to like put a value on our work and feel like we need to reach a certain level of success. And I was just kind of like, I was actually talking to Kanchi about it last night, actually about just the fact that, you know, we kind of got to stop doing that because we then put so much pressure on ourselves to kind of be at this level and be like, oh, am I really like a musician? Am I good enough to, you know, be in this industry? And it's like, well, actually, honey, like you're making your art. Like this is don't put a expectation on it. Your art is your art, and you should cherish that and not feel like, you know, like we shouldn't have to feel like we have to have a certain amount of such and such to be an artist, you know. So yeah, I want the community to like feel that and just be like, all right, we here and we got at each other's back, and yeah.
Una is one of my favorite humans on the earth. I love Una so much. I don't know why Una's not on this. Anyway, but yeah, imposter syndrome. It is the realest thing ever. Or is it? You don't get to know if it's real or not. Because I've wondered before, like, do I have imposter syndrome or am I actually an imposter? And it was imposter syndrome, if that's a thing. But anyway, when did I feel like I made it a career? Yes. Yes. I finally had gotten to a point before COVID, because COVID really shut down the, you know, mixing live music thing. But I had gotten to a place where I felt like I could take myself seriously with it, if that, I don't know how else to put it, where I saw that I could get my bills paid doing nothing else. I had enough work and I could see myself like growing more and doing more with it and all of that stuff. But as was just said, it was really this thing of like, so I love music. I love listening to music. I love playing music. I love making other people's music loud. I really love doing sound because for me, once I got fluid enough with all of the knobs and stuff, it felt like playing an instrument. Like once you get that kind of barrier between what you want to do and what you know, knowing how to get it done, it really does start to feel like creatively expressive. And what am I trying to say? So the pressure to achieve a certain level with it really screwed with me a lot of the time because I just love doing it. Like if I knew that there was a show that night, you know, like if I woke up in the morning and I knew that I was going to be working with an artist that was going to be really fun for me musically, I was going to have a good day all day because I knew that this really fun thing was coming up. And it wasn't about how much I was going to get paid to do it. It wasn't about how it was going to look on my resume or anything like that. It was like, I loved it. But part of the world we live in is that you've got to provide for yourself, and all of this other stuff gets mixed into it, because when it comes to the arts and performing arts, there's this whole like celebrity culture that even if none of us are, you know, like celebrities or anything, there's, I think that that whole way of thinking extends down into communities, and there's like it's just so complex. And there's music and mixing as this thing that I really, really love. And then there's it as like this job. And it did turn into a real battle. Because I started feeling, and this is not to discourage anybody from doing this stuff, I'm just trying to be real. I started feeling kind of creatively drained because I was putting so much of my creativity into this work. And the part of live music, live audio being male dominated, which we haven't really got into yet, that made it really exhausting too, because I enjoy being very feminine, and to put in the extra effort to show up and be real tough and believable as like a live sound tech took a lot of energy. And so yes, I did get to a point where it was feeling like a real viable career and I was getting my bills paid and everything. But I was also at a point where I was wondering, like, do I want to do this to myself? Like, do I want to try to capitalize on my creativity like this? And it was a real mixed bag. Like, I loved it. And I also, well, I talk about it in the past tense because it's not happening right now. I'll totally go back to it if we open back up. But there was some real hard questions in there about it being a career. It was not this cut and dry thing. And there was certainly no feeling of having arrived. I don't know if there ever would be, because it's like, so you can work at like the Ritz, or you can work in these big outdoor shows, but then there's stadiums. And then if you work the stadiums, there's like, I mean, you can just go forever and keep comparing yourself. So it was complicated. Yes, I was making a living. Yes, planned on keep it on. But like that's a layered question to me.
Okay. So what's your favorite thing about being a woman or a non-binary person in the music industry?
My favorite thing, I think my favorite thing is probably the fact that, and this has been going on for like, because I've been doing it for such a long time. Like when we first started DJing in Carborough, we used to throw these lady DJ nights. And like now I think the attitude towards that has changed so much in the past like 13 years. Like back in the day, we would throw lady DJ nights and it was a thing because like we were all these girls who would just all DJ together, and that was like a thing. Now like people have mixed feelings about that. Like some people are just like, yeah, lady DJ nights, like if like it depends on who's throwing it. Sometimes like people can throw like those nights, like if it's a guy being like, oh hey, it's a bunch of girls and they're DJing, it's like lady DJ night. That like it just depends on who's setting it up that way. But my favorite thing about being a woman in this industry is just like when I'm DJing all these different events that I do, and like girls come up, or like, you know, girls and non-binary people, and then like, you know, people come up and they're just like, oh, you're doing this. Like I never saw like a girl DJ before. A lot of people have never seen girl DJs before. There are a lot of us, there are a lot of girl and non-binary like people in the triangle, and I always feel kind of like I take up a lot of space just because I'm so well known, but there are a lot of other girl and non-binary artists who like, you know, do the same thing that I do and do it just as well. But like, it's always nice for people to come up and be like, oh, I've never seen a woman DJ before, and like ask me questions about it. Or like somebody coming up and then like, oh, I saw you at this place like X amount of years ago. And so it's nice to inspire people. So that's fun for me.
Yeah, for me, okay, my favorite thing. Well, I think that was part of getting into this for me was fear that I somehow didn't know as much as other people who want to do this, especially being in school. When I did go to school for music technology, and I was the only woman in my class, and you know, if I had a question, certain guys in the class would maybe snicker at my question. And then later, of course, I found out like, oh, that was a really good question. I almost wish I could go back and do it all again. I had a lot to overcome in terms of feeling good about being a woman who wants to do this. But now that I'm doing it, I only see the like beneficial sides of it. I feel like my intuition is a lot stronger in a lot of circumstances. And a lot of what I do is working with people and in really vulnerable situations with them. And I feel really lucky to kind of have what I think is like a strong sort of and feminine and energetic intuition into these things and these situations, to where I don't make people uncomfortable or feel like they have to show, like, I don't know, make it seem like they know a lot more than they do. You know, I try to create an atmosphere of, you know, we're all here and we're all learning, because a big part of this is I definitely don't know everything. I have so much left to learn. And I've already learned so much in the past few years about this field. It's always going to be that way. It's always an exploration. And yeah, I think having just like an open heart and an open mind, and feeling really comfortable and confident now being myself in that sort of situation, has, yeah, it's really changed my work style and the sessions I'm in. And I think that's part of why people seek me out. You know, it's kind of known now that I can create a certain environment for people, and they want that.
My favorite part. You know what? I think my favorite part of just being a non-binary femme in the music industry right now, I think it's the fact that I'm also a part of like a wave of like other artists. Like I'm part of a wave of like other dope ass non-binary and femme folks, you know. And I remember like, so like I'm really into like queer rap and just like, you know, like artists like Leaf and stuff like this. So like a couple years back, like, you know, when I was in high school and coming out of high school, there was this wave of like queer rappers that came up in films, you know, and I was seeing people like Azealia Banks and Leaf and Cakes the Killer and Dayburger and, you know, all these like really dope influential people, and queer folks too, in the industry. And the fact that now I'm kind of like in the next wave is really dope, because I don't know, I've always just thought that like non like non-men people like bring so much more to the table in music. I don't know, I just feel like men are boring. I'm sorry, men are boring in the music industry, and we keep hearing the same song, the same melody. I don't know. It's just a thing for me to where I'm just like, where's the creativity? Is because of just like the culture and the toxic, you know, how toxic it is. It's just like everyone's afraid to like step outside the box. And then when they do, it's like, oh, it's a big deal because such and such is doing this and they're wearing fingernail polish and this. And I'm just like, you know, like there's non-binary people and there are women and like femmes who have been doing this for a while. It's not new. It's, you know, so now that I'm in a place to, I'm just trying to step on men's throats, to be honest. Like, I think that's my joy, is just kind of like to come in and just be like, listen, we're here. So you're either going to make space or we're going to take the space. I'm not really here to kind of like argue anymore. It's just kind of like, this is what we're doing. So that's my favorite part.
I don't know if I have a favorite part about specifically being like a femme in the music industry. I have favorite, I don't know. I remember when I was a teenager and I was playing guitar and stuff and like playing drums and was really into like a lot of old like rock and roll stuff. I lived in a smaller town. I lived in Newbern, actually, so a few hours east of here in Raleigh. And I went to a small high school, and I felt kind of like my identity was formed around being like the girl who played music. And that wasn't really good for me. I think that caused me to put a lot of pressure on myself to be, you know, as good as the guys, or to be I don't know, it put me in a position to where I had to like defend this identity. And then when I would see other women or femme people doing similar things, I would be like, wait, that's my thing. And I think that getting into doing sound and seeing other people who aren't cis dudes doing all the same things I do, and having to like grow up a little bit and make it sort of professional thing, it forced me to grow in like, and recognize that I had made this identity in my mind that was old. I mean, I'd had that since I was young. And in a way, like part of that is fine. Like it's fine to say like, I know that this is like, I feel at home with this stuff. But to get really like to form like a really strong identity around like being feminine and doing this thing that is typically seen being done by cis men, got kind of messy for me. But there was something else I was thinking about too, which is that like, I think a lot of people who are raised as boys, like socialized as boys, they get talked to a lot more about things like, I don't know, like power tools and cars and electricity and stuff like that. They just matter of factly, people talk to them as if they know about it or are going to know about it or are more capable of learning about it. And over time, that actually, I think, kind of works out, so that when you get a little older, you're more familiar with these topics and things and more confident about it. I don't know if I explained that very well, but being a woman working live sound, I would sometimes see other people, like artists on stage, who I could see felt a little bit shy or didn't feel very confident about how to hook all their pedals up or what to do with their amps or like all the technical stuff. And I kind of understood that these things weren't really that hard, but that a lot of dudes talked about them like they were these really like far out concepts that you just wouldn't understand, or that it was all this really difficult stuff to be afraid of. And so I did enjoy being able to see that in other women and be like, hey, no, it's just this. You just do this, like it's not anything over anybody's head, and kind of demystifying some of it and trying to to say, like, I see, like, I have felt the same way so many times. I felt intimidated by this stuff, and you really don't need to be like, here's, and just kind of um feeling like I had the opportunity to make things easier for other people who maybe felt like I did in some of these ways. So I guess that would be my favorite thing.
Okay. My next question is, what were some challenges you faced being able to support yourself through music and audio? As a woman slash non-binary person, how could you speak to some specific examples of sexism that you have faced in the music industry? How have you noticed that your experience in the industry is different from a cisgender man's? So if you guys want me to say that again, like answer it one by one and then I can just repeat it, that's fine too, because I know that's a lot to say at once.
Oh no, that's fine. I there to go back to on what Kelcy said, like as like a DJ, and like I've definitely even had moments with Kelcy where like back in the day I was just like kind of being like lost during sound check, because even I will admit as a DJ I'm not the best when it comes to sound stuff. So but like there've been times where I've been like hooking up somewhere, and like I do a lot of restaurant gigs and stuff. Like there was one time where I was like hooking up and some dude came up to me, like some dude was sitting there eating dinner, and then he got up and then he was just like, if you need help like with the hookup or anything, just let me know. And I'm just like, dude, I'm here. It's my job. I'm getting paid for it. You get stuff like that from strangers. It's really upsetting when you get like when you have a bad, it's been a while since I had a bad interaction with like a peer, but like there definitely been times where I've had like bad interactions with like male peers, and I've definitely felt like it, to go back on the imposter syndrome thing, like as a DJ, like I have like imposter syndrome sometimes when it comes to like, am I a real true artist because I'm a DJ and I'm playing other people's music and I don't necessarily make my own music. So like, I've always like felt kind of weird when I'm sharing lineups with other DJs who actually do produce. And so like, I know people have feelings about that, but at the end of the day, like people know who I am and people know like what I'm about. So like it comes down to that. And it also comes down to like when you get paid, when we're really talking about money, and like money's a whole different like conversation, because we're all of the same like kind of indie, like DIY, like scene where we're already not making a lot of money when it comes down to the art that we do anyways. And so the bar is already low there. Then you have the bar being even lower when you're a Black woman who makes a lot less money as like a DJ. And so it takes like opening up and having conversations. It can be as simple as like a guy DJ being real transparent about like how much money he makes at a certain club or event, or like even recently I had like a gig that happened earlier this year, and we were talking to one of our guy friends was, they're non-binary or whatever, and they were throwing the show, and we were talking about how much money we're going to get from this establishment. And I was just like, oh, they gave me X amount of money. And I thought the money that I like had stated was like, kind of like a decent amount. And they were just like, well, they can give you twice as much, and they've given me twice as much. Do you want me to ask them if they'll give you that much? And I'm just like, yeah, can you do that? Instead of me just like advocating for myself. So there's a big difference when it comes between like, I'm still like modest and shy about advocating for myself, but it definitely took time to just be honest about like, this is what I deserve and this is what I'm worth. So yeah, I definitely feel that when it comes to like, feeling the difference between being like a cis male in this industry as opposed to being a woman, especially a Black woman in this industry. So yeah, sorry for the long answer, but.
Yeah, I love everything you just said. The payment has been, even now, I think, coming to a place where I feel confident, and the imposter syndrome has somewhat faded away. I'm realizing maybe I should charge rates that other people charge, because a lot of this is just me figuring out, what do I feel comfortable charging. And I was talking to a friend who books shows, and she and I, the way that we decided what our payment should be was to think, okay, how little can I live off of? Like, what can I get away with and be able to afford, you know, meals and rent? And that's not what you should do. You should think what you're worth, you know, not what the bare minimum that you can scrape by with. And that's hard to come around to. At least for me, it's been really hard. And it still is. Really, money is the most challenging thing for me, because I don't want to overstep my boundary by asking for too much, but I don't know how much of that is because I'm a woman in the field, or if it's just because of my personality in general. I just, I don't want to seem too demanding or something like that. I don't know. But specific examples of sexism, there have been 100 billion so far, and I'm sure there will be more. Some were actually really scary. Like one night I was running live sound, and the performer got really violent and like threw his bass across the room and was just screaming into the mic and kind of just being a diva. And that night I felt so ashamed, because I felt like it was my fault that he was upset. And I thought I would never show my face in that venue again, you know, and I'd never work live sound again. But that was, looking back, clearly not my fault. That was just a guy being, you know, a guy, and getting a little too aggressive, and perhaps even just wanting like some sort of twisted like viral video or something. Like, he could have just wanted attention for that. It had nothing to do with me, but that was hard to realize. I've taken jobs where I've been misled about the payment, where somebody says, you know, this is what we can offer. And I think, okay, you know, that's what they can do. Let's make it happen. And in the one particular instance I'm thinking of right now, I showed up and there was a whole crew of people, and they were all getting paid more than me. And I had worked with some of them before on other sets and other scenarios. And so I was close enough with them to kind of discuss it. And nobody could believe how little I was getting paid by comparison, especially because the whole point of it was the music, and I was the one there to record the music. So it was just totally backwards. So that's something I learned the hard way, is, you know, really, really make sure you know what you're signing up for with that kind of thing. I've been like harassed online by a guy who thought I didn't know my music history well enough because I didn't know about his band in the 90s. And it's just like crazy things. I went to Guitar Center. This is the last thing I'll say. I went to Guitar Center to return some line cables I had bought because they didn't work out of the package. And the guy working told me that they didn't sell those cables there. It's like, I bought them. Like, I'll show you where I got them off the shelf, you know. But I think he just didn't want to go through doing a return or an exchange with me. So he told me that they didn't sell those there. Anyways, yeah, there's a lot. But, you know, it's all like, it feels so intense in the moment. But looking back, it's just comical. And it's exciting to think that these things are being addressed and people are realizing that this happens. And so less of it will happen. You know, we're here and we're doing it. And hopefully, if any of you decide that you want to get into this, you won't encounter these things, you know, because we'll have broken down those barriers a little bit, hopefully.
Boom. So like the common thing here is like money, right? I feel like definitely money is such a fucking such a stressor. Like like in general, we live under capitalism. Money is always like something that's continuously stressing people, you know? So like being a Black non-binary person and like coming into it, one of the struggles that I had was like asking for the money, you know, like asking to be like paid what I'm owed. And it could be hard, especially when you're new, because you're like you said, like you don't want to come in feeling too entitled. You don't want to come in like, you know, I'm some diva, but at the same time, you need to know one of the things that I wish I had known at the time is that people would use you if you don't know. And I think also one things that I wish that I want to see more of is like accountability when it comes to like the venues and like people who can check and be like, yo, like, you know, like that's actually this pay is not really what we should be giving them. Like someone who's actually about it rather than being performative, because sometimes I feel like there's venues and things that are like, okay, like we want to make sure our artists feel safe and we make sure that they feel like they're getting, you know, getting what what they should be getting for this, you know, this act that they're performing. Um, and like it was hard for me because just the insecurities are coming into being non-binary, being around cis people who automatically assume that I'm like some cis dude, and like you're just getting, oh hey dude, and it's like first of all, like my pronouns are they she, like let's start there, like let's not assume who's coming into this establishment, because also then people have this idea of how they can treat you. And so yeah, I think my hardest thing was just kind of like navigating. And it's like now, thankfully, you know, I'm at a place to where I'm like, okay, I have the people that I can trust who have my best intentions and who want me to get paid. Especially as a Black femme in the industry. I just feel like, you know, like when you see like I feel like if you're a white person and then in the, you know, in this industry and you see that there's like, you know, Black and brown people really trying to get in, I feel like it's a duty and that is owed for you to like make sure that they have what they need. Even if you like don't know them that well, go and see like, hey, what do you need? Do you need help with this? You know, like because I feel like we can't keep talking about wanting inclusivity and wanting to see more of us in there if the people who have the power to change it aren't actually putting in that work. So I feel like it could be a lot less stress if we can be truly have some solidarity to where we're going up to each other and seeing like what's the tea, like what's up. So that way we don't feel like so alone in these things and feel like we have to struggle alone. And so yeah, like now I'm like, okay, like this is cool. Like I'm able, like thankfully, like with community, like I'm talking about now, like I had people who were willing to like, you know, hook me up like with a computer, you know, to be able to like make do like my programs and things like that. Like this is the sort of thing we need to kind of like build off of that. As far as the sexism goes, like again, men. So like as soon as you go in, like you are having to one deal with somebody who has an ego majority of the time, and you know they'll find some reason to blame on why they can't like just come with some real correct like decency, and it's like because we have to do it, we come in, we have to be on our A game, you know. So when I come in, I don't want you to come at me with some dude stuff. I don't want you to come at me like talk to me like I don't understand what you're saying. I want you to come at me correctly. Also, I don't want you to be creepy and be on like some real pervert, because you know like you're in these settings to where like it sometimes it is unsafe because you have these dudes who feel like, oh okay, like I'm about to get up in there, or I'm like, or have like ulterior motives, and it's kind of like, no, you need to back up because I came to do my show and get my coins. Thank you very much, you know. So yeah, just kind of like that. Those struggles.
Yeah, the sexism stuff can be unreal. It can be really, really intense. And I've been listening to everyone talk about it and like thinking about my own experiences, and I don't know where to start. And I don't know what I even feel like is worth mentioning. As far as money, for some reason, I feel like that is one area where the sexism stuff hasn't affected me as much, because like with what I'm here talking about on the panel, like doing live sound as a job, most venues just have like a rate. And there have definitely been times where I have taken work in like a real freelance way and people have lowballed me, but the sexism stuff that really makes it hard to do my job is the stuff where um, there's like a lack of trust. If I, let's say like somebody's guitar amp is buzzing and I in my mind have a few solutions that I've learned from other live sound techs who have either taught me or other people, just experiences, whatever, for something like that, I do have like a list of things I know to try. And some people will just be like, no, it's not that. You just don't understand. Like, and it's like, oh, but I do understand. And like, I do this every day. Like, this is all the time, like I'm not scared of your amp. And I don't know, it feels silly to even name some of these. There have some that have been more overt where I really didn't feel safe. There have some that have been actually sexual harassment. There's been all of the things. But the part to me that has been the real thing to overcome, that actually gave me some freedom once I realized it, ties into the imposter syndrome stuff, which I think early on when I started doing this kind of work, I didn't want to call it sexism because that felt like calling it sexism was just me not trying hard enough or something. I don't know what I was thinking, but there was a while where I just really didn't want to call it that. I wanted to give everybody except for myself the benefit of the doubt and say like, they wouldn't do that. They just know that I don't know what I'm doing. And the thing is there was a while where I didn't know what I was doing because I was new at it for a while. But there have been times where I definitely did. And when I'm able to say to myself, like, they are insecure, and I do feel confident in my abilities here, it at least takes the edge off. It makes it like not hurt it doesn't ruin my day. I just feel like they're silly and it's their loss. Like if they want to have a harder time today, if they want to take longer to solve this problem, okay. Like I don't have to waste as much energy anymore trying to convince them or prove to them that we can do this together. I can just kind of step back and wait for them to pull it together so we can move on with the show. And it doesn't have to like hurt me, as much. And I've gotten a little better at standing up for myself when people try to call me honey and sweetheart and put their arm around me while I'm doing a job and all of that kind of stuff. I have no problem looking at them and saying like, that's not what we're doing today. And like kind of removing myself. And I really don't care if they feel uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable. And I can't allow myself to worry too much about whether or not the venue will back me up, because if they won't, I don't really want to be working in an environment where I can't say like step off, and it's been a difficult process because there have been times where I think that I actually have been too sensitive, or I hate to say that, but there have been times where I really have been so on the lookout for that stuff that I kind of have had like knee-jerk reactions about it. There have been times where I have allowed people to walk all over me when I could have stood up for myself. I mean, it's gone in both directions. It's been messy, but as of now, in work and just in regular life, I feel like I've gotten a lot better at being able to see when that's happening and being able to live with the discomfort of calling it what it is and saying like, you can't do that with me, had plenty of practice now with this kind of work. So yeah, it's real. If you're a femme out there and you ever are asking yourself, like, is that really what's going on here? It probably is. And you're allowed to say you don't like it. You don't, you're allowed to say, like, that doesn't work for me, you know? And so that's been great to learn. I wonder if I hadn't ever done this kind of work, if I might have gone my whole life without ever learning how to do that. So I'm glad that I have.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your experiences. So this next question was submitted by someone who filled out our Google form that was posted on our Instagram. So they wrote, I'm thinking a lot about our current moment and how rough it is, but how this industry has been built on such a problematic way that has made it so hard for artists to keep power and have autonomy over their own work and careers under normal conditions. So this is a big question, but take it anywhere you like. So there's 3 parts to this question. So the first one is, what do you guys need as artists in this moment throughout coronavirus and everything?
I think maybe you can just read all the parts of the question
Okay.
for this one.
Okay. So what do you need as an artist in this moment? Are there spaces where collective power is being built or where productive change is happening that inspire you or that you're a fan of? Are there things that you suggest fans or workers or artists plug into to support artists as we collectively struggle through this pandemic to work and make this industry better in general? And then I can repeat this if you need me to. I know it's a lot. Yeah.
I feel like, what do I personally need right now? I think right now it's definitely a time where every artist has no choice, but like has to figure out what we're all trying to do, like, to survive at this point. Some people's priorities, like, it's interesting, this pandemic has really put a spotlight on people's priorities right now. And, like, you know, everybody, like, has to survive. You see the difference between people who are, like, you know, doing what they have to do to survive versus, like, just doing it to have fun. And so I think I have pretty much figured out what I need to do is, like, I had to, like, change my whole focus of, like, what I'm doing with my life right now. Like, you know, I went back to school and all that there, but not everybody has not everybody can do that. It takes a lot of money to go back to school. I don't have money. I feel like mutual aid and all that is very important. It's you are a person who is a privilege, who can, like, reach out and impact anybody by, like, you know, being like, oh, here's $10, here's $5. What do you need today? I was thinking about you. Here's $25. Money talks right now, like, essentially. Because at the end of the day, like, sending, like, oh, I miss you, I love you, all that, that's nice. But there are certain people in situations where they don't have food, they haven't had rent, they are about to lose their homes, etc. Like, I feel like mutual aid is really important, especially for artists and, like, femmes, and just not even just artists, like anybody who you think is a creative, anybody who inspires you. Like, you know, you don't have to make music or just, like, be in the club or in the venue, like, just to deserve, like, respect or quality of life. So, and also it comes down to, like, spaces. Obviously, you know, Ruby is my space, but, you know, Ruby's only open in, like, such a capacity that way that, like, even I'm choosing not to be up in the club every day like I was, like, before the pandemic hit, just because, you know, that's not sustainable for a lot of people. And especially, like, club environments are not sustainable places. Like, you know, you can't be in the club forever. And even I was starting to think about that as I got older. Like, I had to start thinking about what did I want for my future. And that didn't, like, to me, when I thought about it, that didn't include me, like, DJing every weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Like, I don't want that life. And I know, like, as a Black woman, it's a burnout. Like, you can't live that life forever. So to have an idea of, like, thinking about spaces in the future, like, club spaces are cool, but we need more, like, coffee shops that are queer owned. We need more, like, bookstores that are queer owned. We need, like, you know, things that aren't just like about drinking or partying or going out, because not a lot of people are about that life. Even me, I'm not really about that life anymore, surprisingly. But like, you know, so to me, that's important in building like, you know, spaces in the future, spaces that aren't just so reliant on like substance and like, you know, things like that.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Yeah, man, what do artists need? I mean, I would love to see artists get to decide everything about their albums that I work on. Sometimes I wonder how people at the tip top who we don't really see, who aren't really making the art, they for some reason they get to decide what is good about it and what's not. I don't know who they are. They're just sort of these, I don't know, amorphous figures up there that decide what song can't make a record or what needs to be replaced. And I think it's kind of been like that with I don't know who asked the question, but as they mentioned, like the music industry has been built in this way of there's a hierarchy, and there just always has been, I guess, because of money. It's capitalism, right? So there's somebody at the top deciding what's going to sell, and there's a huge disconnect between those people and the people who are actually making the art. So just, I think, and as an artist myself, like, I think it'd be great to see some kind of collaboration between all of the people involved. For me, it's like I work on a project and then I send it off to somebody else, and I might not hear about it again until it comes out. But I'd love to sort of know more about what's being decided and why. Yeah, just working together, all kind of on the same level as equals, rather than somebody making the decision for us what we're listening to and what we hear on the radio. And luckily the radio doesn't play as much into what we listen to anymore. There's of course problems with Spotify and streaming services with paying artists, but at least we can choose, which is nice. It wasn't always that way. So yeah, just getting even better. That's my wish. And then let's see the second part of the question. Are there spaces where collective power is being built? Yes, there are. There are people out there that have power, and what they want to do is share it. That's rare, but there are those people, and that is happening. And besides that, you don't need somebody with power to give you power. You already have power. We have it, and that's what we're trying to do. And it seems like we've all kind of come from a similar place of deciding we wanted to try this and loving it and making it happen. And we're doing it, and that's really exciting that we can even do that at all. There are a bunch of collective, Girls Rock NC is huge, just as an opportunity for people to pick up an instrument that might not have that opportunity in another way. That's a great source and collective. There's also, I remember when I was learning guitar, all of the guitar magazines, it was never a female player or non-binary, or it was all just white men in the guitar rock magazines. Now there's a publication called She Shreds, and it only focuses on gender nonconforming or female artists. And there's a really great zine out there called Women in Sound, which I have a couple issues here that I really recommend, by another live sound engineer named Madeline Campbell. Started this project, and it's just really amazing and full of interviews with people who are, kind of doing the same thing that we're trying to do. Yeah, there's a lot of really promising things happening and great collectives. And let's see, was there a third part of the question I didn't answer?
So the third part was, are there things that you suggest fans, workers, artists to plug into to support artists as we struggle through this pandemic and work to make this scene and industry better in general?
Oh yeah, I guess if you like a band, buy their stuff. It really helps them. Especially Bandcamp. If you ever use Bandcamp, that's a great resource right now. They have certain days that they waive the fees that they would normally take as like the tech side of things. They typically take a percentage of this stuff. But they're a pretty progressive company, and they've been doing a good job, I think, during the pandemic, trying to help artists in that way. So if you follow Bandcamp, they'll tell you what days they're waiving the fees, and then just try those days to, order. If it's not a record, even just a digital download, anything helps. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to mutual aid. Bring us something on mutual aid. Money. Again, money is I feel like something that we all need right now. The resources for sure. Bandcamp, you mentioned Bandcamp. Bandcamp is actually paying artists unlike Spotify. So like kind of like following the wave, in a sense of just kind of like, okay, you see where like who's actually supporting artists, like go to that platform rather than staying on this platform so much. Supporting just content makers in general. We need to like get more mutual aid going for folks, like people who have like a Patreon, things like that. People who have OnlyFans, like things in general. Like I just feel like money and resources is something we need to like keep pushing, especially for marginalized people and like queer people and trans people and women of color. Like definitely going out there realizing like, oh, like there are actually whole people who are dying. So we need to create more of a bubble around our fams and stuff. I think the spaces, I feel like spaces right now actually with COVID happening, everything's having to like go to like online spaces, So we have like the Zoom call. There's things like club quarantine, I think it's called. Spaces like that are actually like having like, all these pro artists like come on there who are queer, who are women of color, who are that. Those I think we're definitely probably going to stay in the online wave for a while. Like I don't really see us, to be honest, I don't really see the girls coming back out in 2021. 2022 is looking maybe promising. So I feel like definitely like social media is another thing because of algorithms and stuff. Actually making sure that the artists are being seen and visible is really important right now because especially for for trans people, for like radical like leftists and things like that, a lot of people are getting shadow banned. So like a lot of our like favorite artists you aren't able to see because of the fact that all these plugs and all this is getting pulled so that you don't see them. So making sure that if you like an artist, support the music, definitely make sure that they're getting the visibility. Social media right now is so influential and is how we're getting all this information across to each other. So in one sense, it sucks because we're having to be plugged in all the time. But in the other sense, it's like, this is how we're able to see each other. So I think that that is important. So yeah, I think I hit all the things. Oh, also, just a little promo. I just released a new song. Speaking of supporting artists, I just released a new song called Black Cat, and I dropped the remix, and it's featuring Lord Narv, so you can get that on all platforms. Support Black films. All right.
Um, I don't think that I really have a whole lot to add on this topic from what everyone just said, because I don't personally have anything on Bandcamp or anything, but I am aware that they are like a lot better than Spotify or a lot of other streaming services and stuff about paying artists. And they do have that monthly thing where they like all the proceeds go to the artist. And so that's good. And mutual aid, I mean, just in general, even outside of specifically the arts, I think that getting involved in mutual aid right now is super great if you have the time and the resources, the financial resources to help people in the community, because it's scary. It's a scary time. And there's Food Not Bombs is a really great thing that's going on in Raleigh, and there's also an Chapel Hill based Food Not Bombs. And I had another thought and it's leaving my mind. I don't know why it left my mind, but just trying to like even trying to go out to eat, getting things from like local restaurants that are owned by Black and brown people, and because that's art too. And there's just like all kinds of little ways, I think, to try to be more conscious of where you are directing the flow of money right now, if you have any, you know. So, but other than that, just what they said, because all of these people who spoke before me actually have music up on platforms and stuff. So listen to them.
Okay, so we are running a bit short on time, so if you'd just like to share like a few words on these questions. Do you have any advice for young girls, trans youth, and gender non-conforming youth in the music industry? And also, is there anything you want to plug?
I don't have anything necessarily to plug right now, but my advice is, we were talking about like spaces and things. Right now, obviously you can't go anywhere physical, but like, you know, start your own thing online. Like, I've been using the internet like way longer than I was a DJ, and a lot of those safe spaces, or a lot of those like spaces where I met people who were like me, like Black weird girls who were like me, other like Black weird people who were like me, were like those old school groups on LiveJournal, like those old school groups on MySpace. And I really like, this time is interesting because like everybody's so used to meeting each other in the wild, but a lot of the long term bonds, and even like people in our community, like before we were old enough to go out to like clubs and bars, and it's girls rock. So a lot of the young people in this organization are not of age to go out. And so a lot of the places where we did like meet and make communities with people were online. So I think this will be a cool time for people to like, you know, tap back into that. So like, and like, you know, find those friendships and make those bonds that aren't just like, you know, being out in the wild and just like, you know, so that's like cool. And, you know, that's all I can say. I like, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I love Girls Rock. Like, I always support everything that you guys do. And I love everybody else on the panel. So, yeah.
Well, I see them from there a lot, and I'm just like,
advice. I think just if you think you might be interested in any portion of any of this, just try it. You know, I know a big barrier can be the equipment. At least for me, I had no idea starting out what I needed, and then after that, when I realized what I did need, it's not cheap, you know. So Girls Rock, I love Girls Rock so much for supplying amps and microphones and everything. Some of the things I just brought, just to kind of give an example, if you want to try recording, this is what I started with. And it's funny because Kelcy mentioned this was also her first microphone. This one, which you see normally the singer on stage is using this microphone. You can get a used one for probably like I don't know, $40. I'm just kind of guessing, but that's just like a really simple one. And this one too. Really anything you can get a hold of. This is a tape recorder, and it's awesome, and you can find them in thrift stores. There might not always be working, but you could at least put your hands on some equalizers and some faders and feel more comfortable doing that. And it's, it's on cassette, but that's really actually, I mean, things that are made digitally are based around this concept, which is, tracking the old, the old way, I guess. But people still like it because the sound is exciting. Yeah, I think just try it out. And if you have any like questions or anything like that, there's a ton of resources. We're all here for you. And I guess maybe our contact info is in there so you can, email us personally if you have any questions later. Yeah, just try and find people that you are comfortable with. And I'm certain they'll help you and answer your questions as best they can, myself included.
So I guess to whoever is out there who wants to like create, do so. You can't go anywhere. So like, make use of your time. Or you can just like watch Netflix like I do sometimes. But no, seriously, I think, yeah, don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something. I just feel like that's like something I've always heard growing up as a little kid. Don't let anyone like stir you. But no, seriously, like don't let anybody pressure you into making you feel like you have to do one thing or the other. Like we are not one dimensional. We have all these dimensions to us. So definitely like just nurture it. The more you nurture it, the more you're going to bear fruit from what you're doing. Yeah, also like if you're trans and like non-binary, gender non-conforming, intersex, all that out there, like definitely like just know like yes, you're going to have to deal with cis people stuff and it's some bull sometimes, but ultimately like we need to take up space. We need to take up space. You deserve to be there like everybody else. Do not let anybody make you feel like you are less than. Know, like go in and know that hey, I am excellent. And just the fact of me just being a trans person existing in music or in whatever creative space you are in. So yeah, go out there, kick some butt. Girls Rock NC, love you. Oh, and also buy my new song. Stream it, do all those things. Black Cat, there's a music video out. Never Normal Records is who I'm signed to right now. So yeah, go support it. The girls are out here, so you want to see more of the girls out here, support the girls.
If I had anything to say to young people to want to do creative things, just do the things. I mean, like that sounds really simple. And I don't want to try to say something like overly inspirational either, because it's hard. Like a lot of this stuff is difficult stuff, but it's totally worth it. And you probably can't help yourself anyway. You just got to do it. But if you if you feel like someone is not being respectful towards you, you can say so. You can trust yourself. Like I feel like I've spent a whole long time trying to just come back around to a place where I can trust my own sensibilities. You can just trust yourself about stuff and do the thing that you really want to do. Like don't repress what you feel like you need to do. I wish I had a better way to put all this. Just do your thing and find your people. Okay.
Yeah, I totally get what you guys are saying. But thank you so much for being here and sharing your experiences and your stories and creating such a safe space for each other. And I would also like to thank people who came out to listen to these stories listen to these experiences and coming to our first online panel, which is pretty exciting. This is like the first panel that PAYV organized by ourselves, so pretty proud of us for that. And hopefully we'll have more stuff like this in the future. You can check out our Instagram page at nc.payv, and it's spelled PAYV, just to see how you can support our panelists and follow them and see what they're doing and support their craft. So yeah, thank you guys so much. This was really amazing, and I'm really glad that this all came together the way it did. And yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
for doing this.
Bye.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.